Man, I don't want to work for the next 40 years so that when I retire, I'm too old to actually enjoy it. Yeah, me neither. The idea of me working until I'm 65 to retire and still have to live on a budget makes me want to puke. Whoa, hold your cookies. There are multiple options. Like what? Sometimes it feels like I'm just on this societal conveyor belt and I'm just getting sent down the same direction, the same path as everybody else. Okay, so we're on the same page. We don't have to be robots for society, but what are these other options you speak of? Okay, so you have 3 options. Here's your first option. Option 1, you work for somebody else, like most people do, but you work extra hours to try to get a promotion so you can make a little bit more money. But you gotta live frugally. You gotta save your money and you gotta invest 20% of what you make in pretty safe investments so they'll add up by the time you retire. And then when retirement comes, you can probably retire in your early 60s when Social Security hits, if Social Security is still around, and I think we both know that that's probably not gonna be the case. But nonetheless, you can get that Social Security at 62 and retire then. And at that point, you can go on a vacation once a year, but you still have to live on a budget. Hopefully, you live long enough to actually enjoy that retirement. Well, that doesn't sound like a very appetizing option. It makes me want to lose my lunch like this dude did. What's the other option? So option 2 is a little bit better, but there are a little bit more risk involved. What you do is you work for somebody else like most people, but then you start a side hustle on the side for some extra active income that will hopefully be a good long-term investment or side hustle for you. So you're making a little bit more money so you're able to enjoy life, but you're having to spend a lot of time building that side hustle. So you got a little bit more free money to spend, but you definitely have to still invest. And for this, you have a little bit more money, so you can probably invest in a little bit riskier investments. However, if your side hustle doesn't work out, or if the market kind of tanks, or if the investments that you make don't really pay off, you might have to work close to 70 though. So there is a little bit of downside to the upside of this one. Well, that one has a little more upside, but I don't like the risk. I don't want to start a side hustle and have risk. I'd rather just go with option 1. I agree with that. We might as well work towards option 1 so we can for sure retire in our 60s. Dude, you think that option 1 isn't risky? The most risky thing you can do is work for somebody else. Letting a boardroom of old, out-of-touch people make decisions for your company, you're just a number on a freaking spreadsheet to them. They can make dumb decisions that affect you and the company. Blockbuster didn't get into streaming. They're all gone. Kodiak had the patent to the digital camera, but decided not to actually produce it because they didn't want to cut into their film that they were producing. Letting somebody else control your financial freedom is the dumbest, most riskiest thing you can do. Okay. A, relax, deep breaths. B, what's the third option? Sorry about that. I'm good now. Option 3 has the most upside with the least amount of risk. You can enjoy life now and retire in a handful of years and have more money than you'll ever know what to do with. Why didn't we just start with that one? Because that wouldn't have made a very fun video, would it? I always tell people, grind for 5 years so that you can enjoy the next 50 and do what you want, when you want, and never look at a price tag again. Okay, so spill the beans. All right, I might as well just show you on the whiteboard. So the method that I do, that I teach everybody, is the Brrrr method. It stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and scale. Let me walk you through an example so you can kind of see how this works, and then we'll talk about how to scale it. So what you do, and what all real estate investors do, is you start out with a distressed property. So let's walk through it here quickly. What you do is you buy a distressed property, but you don't use your own money. Use a private money lender or a hard money lender. For this example, let's talk a private money lender because this is a real life example that I did a few years ago. The math works out perfect, so I use it as an example so you can see what the concept looks like in real life. So here's what you do. You borrow money from a private money lender to buy a distressed property. I did it, and the property is $100,000. However, it was distressed, and in order to make it an asset, I have to make it livable to get it rented. So in order to get it rentable, I had to make it livable, so I rehabbed the property. I ended up putting $50,000 into it, so I borrowed $150,000 from my private lender, Steve. He wrote me a check, I bought the house, fixed it up, made it a nice, happy house. Now I need to get it producing cash so I can start to pay people off, because I haven't used my own money yet and I'm not going to this entire time. So the next thing I did was got the property rented and producing cash. So now that I have a fixed up property that's rented, how do I get Steve his money back? You didn't ask that, but I'm gonna answer it. You take it to a small local bank and do an 80% cash out refinance. Not your Bank of America's, not your Commerce banks. Your small local banks love doing loans like this. So they will write you a check for 80% of the appraised value. This specific property appraised for $200,000, which is BS because it was worth like $220, but the math still worked out. So the bank literally did an appraisal, said, I'll give you a loan for 80% of the appraised value. That loan was a cashier's check. They wrote me a check for $160. I took that and I paid back my initial lender, Steve, $10,000. He made $10,000 on that, a little bit less, but let's keep the math simple. So he made 10 grand, he's paid off, he's happy. In like 90 days, he's ready to do again. Now I do owe the bank $160,000, but as I said earlier, that is a mortgage now. So it's a very small payment at a low interest rate made over the next 25 years. So the rent that I collect allows me to pay that mortgage off, as well as all owning expenses, as well as positive cash flow left over. Now that's a lot of work, but over time it starts to add up. That's why I said this takes a few years. You can do 10 of these a year, 20 of these a year if you really want. Probably start out slower, but eventually it will start to grow and grow, and you'll start to create a lot of wealth, because over time this property goes up in value. The tenant pays the mortgage down, so that grows your wealth, and you collect cash flow along the way. And then if you really want to crush this, you need to learn how to scale, which I'm not going to talk about because I already probably made you lose your lunch by going through all this. I explained that in other videos. And if you want to learn more about that, make sure to like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and check out this video over here where I walk through a real life house and show you HGTV style before and after. See you on the next one.